that they now have to pony up these dollars to pay for violating someone's rights. So I think that's where, everyone's anger should be directed. And if everyone does direct their anger there and, acts as a watchdog on government officials, then this stuff won't happen as much in the future. And taxpayers won't be on the hook for these egregious violations of people's constitutional rights.
Now, schools and government entities in Georgia and Tennessee, they're paying large sums of money to settle lawsuits with educators who were fired because of comments they made about Charlie Kirk, the slain Turning Points USA founder. The Center Square Associate Editor Kim Jarrett reports most of the online posts, which were viewed as celebrating Kirk's death, were on personal social media pages and were reposted online. Now, collectively, the comments not complimentary of Kirk. Kim joins us now to discuss this issue further. Kim, thanks for taking time here with the states. So we've got, of course, educators in this position. They sue after some kind of reprimand against them, and these governmental entities, these taxing bodies, they're paying stuff out here. What is that taxpayer impact?
Well, there's a lot of taxpayer impact. If you look at some of the counties, or one of them is paying $830,000 for a social media post that someone posted and the man went to jail. You look at the University of Tennessee, $1.9 million to a professor who posted something about Charlie Kirk's death. This money has to come from somewhere. If you've covered enough county governments as I have, Greg, you know that from time to time, you're going to hear about lawsuit settlements. Lots of times that comes out of some insurance that the county or city has, but that could lead to higher premiums, which again gets passed on to the taxpayers. So these lawsuits, as we always say, the money has to come from somewhere. Sometimes, very rarely, it might come from the general fund, or a city or county might have to scramble, but the money comes from somewhere.
And a lot of times that is taxpayer funds. Tell us more about the University of Tennessee story that you unpacked in your article, because there are so many instances here, but the Tennessee one is pretty glaring. Tell us about that.
So back in September, right after Mr. Kirk died, one of the professors, she made a post on her own personal page, which got shared. U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn picked this up, and the university's president also picked this up, and they immediately fired this professor. She, of course, sued them. There are a lot of lawsuits, and I cover Georgia and Tennessee, Greg, but there are a lot of lawsuits throughout the country involving situations where people posted something about Charlie Kirk's death. They were fired from their job, and now they're suing. But in the case of this Tennessee professor, she sued, and then just in June, the Board of Trustees voted to pay out $1.9 million, one of the largest that I have seen in my research so far.
$1.9 million that the university is paying out. What was the rationale that they gave for settling?
Well, Board Chairman John Compton said, we could spend this money fighting this. The costs are going to continue to incur, or we can save the money and then we could just use it to, advance the institution. Basically, it was a time and cost-cutting measure to go ahead and settle this case.
Did they recognize any of the free speech questions that were raised in the challenge?
They didn't mention that in their board meeting at all. They just talked about the settlement, but they did basically, that's really all they did. And they had some other business going on at the time. But no, they did talk about the free speech challenges that I recall from watching the board meeting.
This is an issue that you talked with one organization, Fire, about, and we'll touch on that here in a bit. But again, the Tennessee story is just one. There are other instances here. Tell us about some more.
Well, in Georgia, there is a teacher, or a former teacher now, in tiny little Oglethorpe County, which is right outside of Athens, Georgia. She sued. She's getting $300,000 according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. We tried to independently verify that number, and we did not get any response. But I did a little bit of research on Oglethorpe County. That's a very small school system, and that's probably going to have an impact on them. If you also look, there've also been a case with Austin Peay University. There was a professor there. He got a $500,000 payout, and he kept his job as well for some of the things that he said online about Mr. Kirk.
And again, these seem to be like settlements before there's a court actually declaring that somebody was in the wrong or not in the wrong. So it seems that they're kind of, in a way, not taking responsibility for something that the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression had to say. And you talked with Aaron Turr. He is the public policy director And he said that there's important context here that needs to be highlighted as to who's at fault for these particular cases. Let's watch this.
There may be that short-term cost that may be kind of painful, but the idea is that it's going to deter similar types of constitutional violations by that government in the future. And really, I think, I would say that's where the public should be directing its ire, not at the people who are trying to vindicate their rights, because this is the only way they can do it, right? But at the government for violating their rights.
Again, taxpayers footing the bill for this. But is there really going to be any accountability here, Kim?
That's a good question because so far, what we are seeing in all of these cases at this point that have not been settled, they're just settlements. I did a lot of research on this story just in Georgia and Tennessee. So I'm not a spokesperson for all of the lawsuits in the entire country. I haven't seen like apologies from any of the boards or any talk about, well, yeah, we might not should have fired them or that was a bad decision. Haven't seen any of that yet.
Yeah, it's interesting because somebody made that choice, right? Somebody made that decision to say, well, this person posted on their private social media unsavory things about somebody, whether it's political or not. It wasn't necessarily through an official school channel, but somebody in the school administration made that decision to punish the employee. And you're saying that you haven't seen really anywhere that you've been able to research a public acknowledgement of either doing wrong, possibly violating somebody's free speech, or even somebody being let go for costing the university or the school district hundreds of thousands of dollars?
No, I haven't. In fact, John Compton said he did have confidence in the University of Tennessee's leadership in that because the University of Tennessee's president was tweeting about this incident where they're paying out the $1.9 billion back when it was happening in September, as was U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn. In fact, in Tennessee, I think that we wouldn't have known about as many posts from people, talking about Mr. Kirk's death if Marsha Blackburn, she's now running for governor, if she hadn't posted them. That's how we discovered them, and that's how some university, in fact, in the Austin P case, she actually tagged Austin P University and said, what say you about the one where they just paid out $500,000 earlier this year? So, yeah, and there may be some that I have missed because everything that I have is not all inclusive. But no, it's interesting how these cases were settled. They're done, and some of them were settled, and you just didn't hear a lot about it until we kind of started going, okay, what's going on with these cases?
People not just losing their jobs and then taxpayers having to cover the costs of these settlements, but there were even arrests, right? Tell us about one case you're aware of.
Oh, a case out of Perry County, Tennessee. I hope I say his name right, Larry Burshart. He's just a citizen, former law enforcement officer. He posted a meme that had President Trump in it saying something after the Perry County, Iowa shooting that says, we're just going to have to get over it or something similar to that effect. The Perry County, Tennessee Sheriff's Office saw this. It was brought to his attention and they arrested him. He was in jail for a month. He missed the birth of his first grandchild. He missed his anniversary. He had a $2 million bond. And eventually he was released. Fire actually handled his case, and he received $830,000 as a settlement for the time that he spent in jail.
Kim, it's I think safe to say these types of payouts that taxpayers are footing the bill on, not quite done yet, are they?
No, there are some all over the country. Here in Tennessee, we have the case of Monica Meek. She's also represented by Fire. She is a Tennessee state employee who has been fired. We have a dean at Middle Tennessee University who was fired, and her case is still pending in federal court as well. So yeah, here, especially here, we're in the states that I cover. I did come across a couple. I know there are a few more going on in other states as well.
Well, let's wrap up with something that Tur told you for this story in particular about, this really isn't about the quality of somebody's speech. It's about free speech. Let's hear that.
Our goal is just to protect and defend their right to say it, whether we agree with it or not. Because the First Amendment is supposed to be there for everybody. It's supposed to be a principle that protects every American's right to speak their mind and to express their views, because that's a principle that's fundamental to our democracy and fundamental to being human and being able to, express yourself.
Kim, thanks for taking time with us. We'll definitely check back in on these stories and plenty more out of Georgia and Tennessee.